Prologue, Code Quiet, Shared Cold Open. I learned two kinds of silence working nights. The first is ordinary, the hush that falls after 2 a.m. when even the drunks in ED sleep with their mouths open and the telemetry monitor blinks like a tired lighthouse. The second kind is the one no policy covers. A silence so full it has edges. You'll hear it when a machine says a name you didn't type. When a hall smells like rain though housekeeping mopped with lemon 10 minutes ago. When someone presses the call button from a bed no one's assigned. They call it code quiet in some places, a joke. Like naming a storm breeze. We never page it. We just move a little faster and pretend the air isn't colder twice. Once at the skin and once beneath it. I've pulled blankets over bodies that breathed again after the sheet touched their lips. I've seen oxygen tubing coil by itself like a snake waking up. I've watched a man die to the hiss-click rhythm of a ventilator and then watched the ventilator keep counting for a patient across the hall who wasn't on one. If you need proof, you'll hate my stories. Nights don't sign affidavits. Nights only leave fingerprints in places you don't want to check. But I'll tell you anyway. The way we tell each other over stale coffee at 4:15. Standing by the Pyxis with the drawer stuck and somebody's phone buzzing in a locker to a song their family will play at the funeral. We don't believe in ghosts. We believe in charting. We believe in pulse ox numbers. And sometimes, after everything is documented and witnessed and co-signed, we believe in shutting a door gently and not asking who shuts it again from the inside. These are the only two stories I swore I'd never write. The first started with a bed that called for the wrong patient. The second started with oxygen that kept disappearing no matter how tight I turned the valve. Both of them started at 3:13 a.m. The minute the clocks in our unit were never in agreement about. If you're still with me, scrub in.
Chapter 11. Who was saved? I cornered June by the medroom. What really happened the day you died? Her hands trembled as she twisted her cardigan sleeve. It wasn't the system that chose. It was a resident. VIP came in during noon. Hospital CEO's brother. Bed 12 was collapsing. Orders got swapped. My patient coded while the VIP lived. Paper said I'd given the wrong med. I died when I tried to fix it. They blamed you. They always blame someone with the least letters after their name, she said bitterly. I wasn't saved. I wasn't forgiven. I was just left open. And now it keeps repeating. Because the ledger learned it can balance by taking. Noon writes the lie. Night pays it back. I thought of Catherine, breathing weakly but alive. Of Miguel Alonso, finally given a proper line on the chart. Of the system whispering my name. You want me to be the one at dawn, I said. June didn't deny it. You'd take my place? I asked. She smiled. Thin. I've been taking places for 3 years. One more won't matter. Cliffhanger beat. At 05:59, the sun beginning to gray the windows. Bed 12's call light flicked red one last time. The speaker whispered, Nurse? For Mara. Story 1. The bed that called the wrong name. Chapter 1. Handoff at dusk. Day shift left like a tide, fast and a little rude. I signed in as the last clamshell container of cafeteria pasta hit the break room trash with a wet thud. Float pool nights mean you go where the holes are, and tonight the hole was Unit C, cardiac step down, 9 occupied beds and an attitude. Bed 12 is empty, the day charge said, already half out of her zip jacket. EVS finished at 4. They're waiting for transport to take the body to the morgue. Why is transport waiting on an empty bed? I asked. She shrugged. The universal gesture for above my pay grade. Paperwork mismatch. Also, the monitor keeps buzzing, but Biomed swears it's fine. You've got bed 18 Donnelly on 2 liters, mild CHF, dreams in high definition and talks in her sleep. Don't let her charm you. She'll ask for ice chips like a con artist. She tapped the board with a dry erase marker. My name, Mara RN, went under 14, 16, and 18. We didn't write names next to 12. We left it as 12, hold. Sunset walked down the hallway, throwing long windows across the waxed floor. Cardiac units always smell like orange and static. I checked my meds, confirmed that Ms. Donnelly was allergic to morphine, nausea, vomiting, which families call allergic because it sounds safer than we gave her too much too fast. and said hello to each of my rooms. Bed 18's voice slid around sleep like a spoon in a jar. "Did you bring the flowers?" Ms. Donnelly murmured. "He said the lilies were for me." "No lilies?" I said, adjusting her cannula. "Just oxygen." "Then why can I smell funerals?" She smiled without opening her eyes. The monitor chirped 96% sat, heart rate in the 70s. Her chart said DNR, DNI, with a bright lavender sticker. She had a son out of state and a rosary in the drawer, the cheap plastic kind that squeaked. When I passed bed 12, I looked without meaning to, the way you glance at a dark television to check your reflection. Fresh sheets. Corners tucked so sharp they could nick a wrist. The monitor was powered but not connected, showing the green demo loop. A healthy sine wave, perfect and meaningless. The call light above 12's door flicked red. Ping. I stopped. The little voice on the wall speaker crackled to life, the same three-tone chirp every room used. "Nurse," a woman's whisper. A name followed. Soft and sure, for Catherine Donnelly. I didn't move. I know what miswired systems sound like. I know the wrong bed speaking for the right one. Only the hair lifted on my arms. That second kind of silence sliding into the hall behind me. "Bed 18 calling from 12, I said out loud, partly to the air, partly to the universe that hates a dead channel. "Not funny," the day charge called from the station. "Don't let nights get to you." "I'll check on her," I said, and forced my shoes to unglue from the floor. Ms. Donnelly had a call button in her hand and wasn't pressing it. She slept with her mouth open like a child. Her room bell was dark. Only bed 12 stayed lit, steady as a stoplight. I pressed the cancel at 12. The light died. The monitor's demo loop drew another perfect empty beat. By 2113, I told myself it was crossed wiring. By 2117, I stopped telling myself anything and started documenting instead. Because you can pray to a lot of gods in a hospital, but the one who answers fastest lives in the chart. 2100. Call light in 12 activated. No assigned patient. Speaker listed name Catherine Donnelly. Bed 18. Assessed 18. Patient sleeping. VSS. Cancelled light in 12. Biomed ticket pending. I didn't sign it nervous. I signed it Mara L. RN. Cliffhanger beat. At 2119, telemetry chimed from the central station. VTAC detected. Bed 12. No one laughed. Chapter 2. The first call. We crowd around alarms. It's hate and gravity. Charge me, the new grad still wearing her badge on a lanyard like a tourist. The monitor showed a 10-second run of ventricular tachycardia. Wide, ugly, the waveform of a heart trying to remember itself too fast. On bed 12, the telemetry tech patched in from the screen down in the basement. "Key unit, you got a strip on 12? Biomed's playing Pong on that box," the charge said. "There's no patient." "Then whose heart just did the Macarena?" the tech asked. I pulled the leads from the wall. They were coiled neatly, ends capped in yellow plastic. I lifted them like a stethoscope and felt the cold weight of rubber and air. "Print it," I said. The charge pressed print, and the machine coughed out a narrow ribbon of thermal paper. 10 seconds of someone's attempt at dying. "Maybe the signal bled from 18, the new grad offered, or the telemetry label didn't update." We all looked at bed 18. Ms. Donnelly breathed slow and deep. The alarm over her door was green. Her heart traced the gentle hills of a person in a good dream. The charge tore the strip and handed it to me. I didn't want it. That's a truth you don't say. Owning the paper is owning the moment. Still, I folded it into the pocket behind my badge, next to a faded photo of my sister's kid dressed like a dinosaur. "I'll call Biomed," the charge said. "You check the room. Make sure nobody's joyriding the defib." I stepped into bed 12. The air had that just clean chill, like a refrigerator. The sheets were military tight, pillow a little too full. The bed rails were up, which EVS never does. They always leave them flat. The call button sat in its cradle, red and innocent. "Hi," I said, because sometimes saying hi to an empty bed makes it a bed again and not a space. "We're not doing this." A sound came from under the pillow, small and unkind. The muffled chirp of a pressed call button. I froze, then I lifted the pillow. The call button lay beneath it, not in the cradle. Warm, a smudge of moisture on the plastic cord. My mouth went dry. I replaced it in the cradle and wiped my palm on my scrub pants. "Nope," I told the room, like it was a dog eyeing the trash. "House rules." The speaker on the wall hissed. "Nurse?" The same voice. The same tender, papery whisper. For Catherine. She's cold. I walked directly to bed 18 and tucked the blanket around Ms. Donnelly's shoulders, because care is a spell you cast against the dark, because sometimes you fix the wrong thing to keep from touching the right one. Her skin was warm. Thank you, she whispered without waking. I didn't want to be cold in the wrong bed. Her oxygen cannula hissed. The telemetry hummed. The hall returned to its ugly, friendly noises. I updated the chart. I didn't write the part where the call button was warm. You don't write warmth, you write numbers. Cliffhanger beat. At 23:02, a page posted to the communication board on bed 18's chart. Morphine 2 mg IV Q2HPRN pain. I hadn't entered it. The attending hadn't rounded. The dose stood alone, unsigned, like a door left ajar. Chapter 3. Unearned breath. We don't use morphine for Ms. Donnelly. Allergy flag, lavender sticker. Paper doesn't blanch, but I did. I checked the order history. The morphine entry had no author, just a timestamp, 12:04 p.m. The time the day shift told me the noon code ended in bed 12. Whoever died at lunch had shared a minute with this ghost order. Charge, I said softly. You seeing this? She leaned in. Read? And frowned with her whole jaw. Call the attending. And pharmacy. And take that off MAR before somebody scans it in the dark. I removed the med from the MAR, clicked the checkbox that says entered in error, which is our way of telling the system it dreamed. Pharmacy pinged back. Order not found in queue. Suggest reboot. The attending didn't answer. His phone went to the long sigh voicemail of a man who ran out of apologies last year. I turned to Ms. Donnelly. She looked beautifully ordinary. The kind of old woman who used to put pennies in gum machines for children not hers. I brushed a hair off her cheek. The pulse ox traced a tidy 95. Somewhere down the hall, a TV played a game show in a language that made everyone sound happy to be wrong. At 0011, bed 18 desadded to 86 with no explanation. No coughing, no anxiety spike, nothing but the numbers sliding like a car on ice. I increased her O2 to 3 liters. The SAT rose to 90 and then fell again. I swapped cannulas. I checked for a kink in the tubing. I listened for crackles. Her lungs sounded like paper unfolded carefully. Telemetry beeped a warning from the station. PVCs noted, bed 12. Enough, I said too loudly. The new grad flinched. Want me to grab RT? She asked. Grab me Biomed and EVS, I said. And security. The word tasted dramatic. I said it anyway. We're having a very expensive prank. While she left, I pulled the leads from bed 12's wall. I traced each cable to its end like I was learning a knot. No magic, just plastic, metal, and the space where a body wasn't. The wall speaker clicked. Nurse, for Catherine. Wrong chart. I know, I said before I could stop myself. We fixed it. A dry chuckle, like paper scratching paper. Not yet. EVS arrived with a mop and a look that said he'd been dragged from his secret nap spot. You need floors or feelings? He asked. Tell me where you left the call button in 12, I said. In the bottom drawer, he said, offended. We always take it out so the bed doesn't call me at home. We opened the drawer together. It was empty. EVS pointed at the cradle where the button sat as if it were posing for a portrait. Then who? Don't, I said. If you finish that question, you own it. Security rolled up, bored but tall. The guard's radio barked half words. What are we looking for? Footage, I said, from noon. Anybody in or out of 12 who shouldn't be. He did the shrug. I can pull hallway cams. Good, I said. Pull 11:45 to 12:15. He left to do it, the way people leave to do things in hospitals, briskly, as if running can outrun the hour. Pharmacy messaged back again. Order ID located, signed out by Dr. O'Malley. I felt the relief first, then the wrongness. Dr. O'Malley had rotated off last week. Old template? The charge guessed. He fat-fingered the date? Maybe, but the timestamp was exact. 12:04 p.m., the same as the code. The minute the dead patient in bed 12 had either left or refused to. I pictured the light in that room at noon, the sun angling across the sheet. I pictured a doctor signing an order with one hand while the other pressed 2 fingers into a neck. I turned back to Ms. Donnelly. You doing okay? Catherine? She opened her eyes. They were clearer than I expected, the blue of a pool tile. You moved me, she said. No, I said, you're still in 18. We might move you later if... You moved me, she repeated, patient with my stupidity. She reached a hand toward me, slow as a plant. Thank you. For what? For not letting me be the one who paid. A thrill ran like cold water across my scalp. Paid what? She smiled, and for a second I saw the shadow of a young woman lift from her face and then settle back down like a bird reconsidering the branch. The lunch bill. Her sat climbed back to 96% without my help. Cliffhanger beat. Security returned with a tablet. He played the noon hallway clip. We watched the code team enter bed 12. At 12:04, an unbadged person in scrubs stepped out of 12 and walked away with a call button dangling from their hand like a tail. Chapter 4. The Noon Death. Security set the tablet on the counter like a tray of instruments. We crowded in. Hallway cam. Timestamps stamped over the picture in white. 11:57 to 12:11. The crash cart arrived at 12 on clock. 2 residents, 1 attending, RT, charge. At 12:04, a figure in seal blue scrubs slipped out, camera catching only a shoulder and a hand. No badge. The hand dragged a call button by the cord. It ticked across the floor tiles like a metronome. Freeze, I said. He froze on the forearm. Tattoo just above the wrist, not decorative. Block letters like a label. O Negji. Trauma folks mark like that, the guard said. Blood type tats. Could be old school. Do we have an O negative RT? The charge asked. 3, I said. 4, if you count travel. The guard rewound, then let it play forward. At 12:05, the attending leaned in the doorway to speak to someone inside, pen in one hand, phone in the other. The residents worked a rhythm at the bedside. At 12:07, housekeeping peered down the hall, saw too much, and retreated like a cat. At 12:09, the cart rolled out, quiet as a funeral. Can you pull inside the room cams? I asked, knowing the answer. We don't put cameras in rooms unless there's a sitter. Bed 12 had no sitter. Death is private in public places. I opened the code packet in the chart. The noon notes were clean. Compressions, EP, pulse check, time of death. I scrolled and scrolled until I hit a line that wasn't ours. The system had attached a post-mortem attestation, signed and time-stamped at 12:04 by O'Malley, MMD, the same attending who had rotated off last week. The attestation had language I'd never seen. Chart reconciled. Name mismatch corrected. Witnessed by, and then an empty field. Who edited the template? I asked. It would have to, the charge said, or somebody with admin. I paged O'Malley. He answered on the second ring, voice full of gravel and coffee. What? C-Unit? This is Mara, Float RN. Your name is on a post-mortem attestation from today. Bed 12. Did you chart that remotely? He exhaled a long second. I was on call for a delivery at noon across town. I didn't touch C-Unit. Then somebody charted you, I said. Or the system burped my macro. He said, send me a screenshot. And Mara, don't say forensics in your email. It ruins my night. I sent it anyway, without the F word, with the facts. Meanwhile, Ms. Donnelly slept, and Bed 12's monitor fluttered its fake sinus rhythm like a magician's scarf. Biomed arrived with the screwdriver and the tired arrogance of men who talk to machines more than people. He popped the monitors back, reseated a board, shrugged. Ghost voltage, he declared. This building's 100. Every wire here hums a hymn. You want me to swap it? Swap it, I said. He brought a fresh unit. We plugged it in. It booted with that innocent beep. No loop, no patient. I breathed easier. At 0:53, the new monitor pinged. NIBP 8450, bed 12. Impossible, Biomed said. Not here, I said. We printed the blood pressure. The paper trembled in my hand. I slid it beside the VTAC strip in my badge pocket like I was collecting trading cards of the dead. Cliffhanger beat. My phone buzzed. An email from O'Malley. Don't leave Miss Donnelly alone. Somebody's swapping identities by order set. If you have to, move her off the grid. Chapter 5. Float nurse math. Off the grid in a hospital means out of the pattern. Patterns kill and save us. Med times, rounding, labs at 4 a.m., vitals Q4. Break the pattern and the system can't find you. If the system can't find you, the thing writing the system can't either. I pulled the curtain halfway in 18 so it wouldn't draw attention, then slipped into 14, a room empty but warm from the HVAC vent's stubbornness. I prepped 14 like a hotel turndown. Fresh sheets, monitor off, linen cart staged to look like EVS had just left and might return any second. "Tell me you're not moving her without orders," the charge said, reading my mind via the guilty way I stood. "I'm moving her without fanfare," I said, "just to see if Bed 12 knows her name when she isn't next door. We're going to catch heat." "We're already catching cold," I said, and she didn't argue because her hands were still a little shaky from watching a monitor breathe numbers. I unplugged Ms. Donnelly's IV pole, pocketed her rosary like it needed a chaperone, and rolled her down the hall. She woke at the doorway of 14 as if a draft had touched her ankles. "New room?" she whispered. "Temporary," I said. "Think of it like a hotel upgrade. Same view, less hallway, less lunch bill," she said and patted my arm. I set her up. O2 at 2 liters, SATs 95. I closed 14's door almost all the way and left a do not disturb in the chart by mislabeling her room as 18B, a fake annex we use when census hiccups. It's a paper lie, and paper lies can jam a machine's habit. At 0117, Bed 12 speaker crackled. "Nurse? For Catherine. She's cold." I watched the number over 14's door. No light. Inside, Ms. Donnelly snored softly. The central telemetry tech pinged us. "Heads up, 18 is showing artifact. Looks like the patient's doing jumping jacks." "18 is empty," I said. "Well, that would explain the cardio." The tech deadpanned. "Flag anything that looks like 18 and send me the strips," I said. "Also, if 12 blips, print. Don't argue. Just print." I went back to 12. On the side rail, the plastic clip that should have held the call button cord was snapped. Not broken, snapped. Like someone had pinched it hard. I pulled the pillow, checked beneath. The button was there again, warm again, as if a person had just set their head on it and whispered for help. "Wrong chart," the wall speaker sighed, affectionate and exasperated, like an old nurse scolding a new one. "You keep fixing the wrong chart." "Then tell me the right one," I said. I didn't know I was going to say it until I did, and then I couldn't unsay it. Silence, the second kind, the kind with edges. "Lunch?" the voice said finally. "Trade. 12 for 18. Paid." I felt the thought race through my head like a rat in ductwork. The noon code wasn't a failure. It was a ledger. Someone, something, was balancing names, orders, beds. A swap at 12:04 had reached across to 18, and when I moved Ms. Donnelly, the system wanted to move her back. "Not tonight," I said. "You can have my chart first." "I have it," the voice said pleasantly. The printer at the desk began to spit paper. The new grad ran to catch it. "It's printing admission labels," she called. "For Mara L. RN. Allergies. NKA. Code status, full." "Turn it off," the charge said, and the new grad yanked the plug like she was defusing a bomb. Cliffhanger beat. My pager vibrated with a direct message from an unlisted extension. "Stairwell C, now." Attached, a photo of a toe tag with Ms. Donnelly's name on it, taken on a concrete step. Chapter 6. The call button. Stairwell C is the one nobody uses because the door slaps loud and the landing smells like wet paint no matter how long it's been since anyone painted it. I took the steps 2 at a time. The kind of run you only do when you think you're either saving a life or making a dumb mistake. At the first landing, the toe tag lay like a dropped napkin. White cardstock. Pre-printed fields. Name, Catherine Donnelly. DAB, correct. MRN, correct. Date, time, 12:04 p.m. Even death wore the same minute. I didn't touch it. I photographed it, then used my foot to nudge it into a biohazard bag. Because superstition is just infection control with a different mask. "Hello?" I said into the metal echo of the stairwell. "This is dramatic. You've got my attention." The door above me creaked open. A shape leaned in, backlit by hallway fluorescence, small, hunched, with a hunter's green cardigan over scrubs that had seen Bleach lose a fight. Respiratory therapist badge on a clip, and no name. Just respiratory therapist in generic font and a black square where the photo should be. "Who are you?" I asked. My hand wanted to reach for the call button like it was pepper spray. I settled for holding up my own badge like a crucifix. She started down the steps. I could hear her O2 bottle clink against the rail where she steadied herself. On her wrist, the Oneg tattoo. "You're from Noon," I said. "From Nights," she corrected gently. "All my life." When she reached my level, I could see her face. 2 good bones, eyes too bright, a mouth that seemed to apologize even when it pressed into a line. The kind of face you trust to hand you a breathing treatment at 4 a.m. "Do you work here?" I asked. "I worked everywhere," she said, as if tense had stopped mattering. "These halls keep their habits. Did you pull the toe tag?" "I pulled the wrong order," she said. "At lunch, and every lunch before that, and every night after. We fix what lunch breaks." I held her gaze the way you hold pressure on a wound. "You're telling me the noon code took the wrong person?" "I'm telling you the noon code listed the wrong person," she said. "Name slip. Wristband swap. Paper thinks it's smarter than breath. I try to catch it. I don't always." "Then why call Ms. Donnelly from bed 12? She tilted her head. "The way you do when you're listening to auscultation only you can hear. Because the bed remembers who lay in it last. Bed 12 wants Catherine because Catherine sat there 1 hour while EVS dusted and transport argued downstairs. She left her weight in the mattress. She left her name in the rails." "That's not how anything works," I said without conviction. "That's how everything works," she said. "We're just bad at saying it out loud." She lifted the call button from her pocket. The cord trailed like a vein. She pressed it once. "The speaker in the stairwell." "Yes, the stairwell," chirped 3 tones. "Nurse, for Catherine." "I moved Catherine," I said. "She's safe. For now," the woman agreed. "But the ledger is still open. The minute is still owed." "Then take me," I said, because it was out there anyway, and because I meant it. She shook her head. "You're not on the list." "What list?" "The list of debts this place recognizes," she said, and her voice caught, and that catch felt older than either of us. "Who are you?" I asked again, softer. "Someone who didn't clock out," she said. "Someone who thought O negative meant I could give to anyone. Turns out, it meant anyone could take from me." Before I could answer, her radio, there was no radio, crackled at her hip. She lifted the call button like it was a handset. "I hear you," she said into nothing. Then to me, "Room 14 now." I ran. Cliffhanger beat. I burst into 14. Miss Donnelly lay awake, eyes glass bright, mouth blue at the edges. The O2 line was clean, the tank full, the wall source hissing, and yet her sat read 82% and falling. Chapter 7, The Noon Visitor. "Catherine," I said, already turning the flow up, already reaching for the ambu bag. Her hands fluttered at her chest like trapped birds. "Cold," she said. "The wrong cold. RT to 14. I called into the hall, and the charge and the new grad appeared like they'd been waiting just outside. "Get me albuterol neb and call respiratory. Anyone." The new grad sprinted. The charge pressed the code blue button with the gravity you press a doorbell at a haunted house. The wall speaker did its mechanical bing-bong nonsense, which always sounds too cheerful for what it starts. I bagged Catherine. Her chest rose obediently, as if the mechanics had never been the question. Her sats climbed to 86, then sagged. "Come on," I told the room, the bed, the ledger. "Wrong chart," the wall speaker whispered. "Then write a new one," I snapped. The door pushed open against the AC pressure. The respiratory therapist in the green cardigan stood there, not out of breath from whatever backstairs path she used. She wheeled in a portable vent like a knight with a spare horse. "Trade me," she told me, and I passed the bag without hesitation. Her hands were deft. She breathed for Catherine as if she'd invented breath, counting with her eyes rather than her mouth. "Orders incoming," the charge said, phone pressed to her ear. "MD says treat like flash pulmonary edema, nitro paste, IV Lasix." "Careful," the RT said. "What you give to one bed, you take from another." "We'll deal with the other bed when it shows up," I said. She gave me a long look that said that's exactly the problem, and then nodded. "Do it." We pasted nitro, pushed Lasix, lifted Catherine's legs, sat her up. Her lungs crackled, finally, something honest. Sats crept from 82 to 89 to 93. Color returned to her lips slowly, like a photo developing. "Thank you," she whispered to the ceiling. Not to us, to the ceiling. The charge exhaled. The new grad cried in silence near the sink and then got angry at herself for crying, which is a good sign she'll make it. When it settled, I turned to the RT. "Your name," I said. "I'm not letting you leave without it." She touched her badge, thumb sweeping the black square as if it would reveal a face. "June," she said finally. "June Keating. I used to sign J. Keating, RRT. I used to fight noon with numbers, and I lost something at 12:04 3 years ago that never let me go. What did you lose? I asked. My exit, she said simply. She lifted Catherine's wrist gently, checking the pulse she already knew. On the skin, a faint adhesive shadow where a different wristband had been too tight for too long. Who was in bed 12 at lunch? I asked. Mr. Alonzo, the charge said, reading from the code packet. DNR confused. Admitted for decomp CHF. Comfort measures pending his daughter's arrival. She missed the flight. The kind of man the ledger loves, June said softly. Signed away to death on paper while his lungs begged for one more hour to let a plane land. So the system paid his bill with Catherine's name, I said, the shape of it forming in my throat like a swallowed coin. Because the beds were adjacent. Because the order set tagged wrong. Because someone wanted to be efficient at noon. Because hospitals keep noon sacred, June said. Lunch breaks get guarded like altars. We pay for quiet with the sacrifice we don't admit. I put both of my hands on the rail of 14 and pressed until my palms hurt. We're not paying it tonight. Then close the ledger, June said. Put the right name in the right place and ask the room to agree. How? Give bed 12 what it's asking for, she said, and handed me the call button. It was warm. It trembled, or maybe my hand did. Say it, she whispered. Say the right name to the wrong bed. I walked into 12. It felt colder, not AC cold, basement cold. The monitor waited, blank and smug. I pressed the call button. The speaker chimed. Nurse? For Miguel Alonzo, I said. My voice broke on the last syllable. This bed is for Miguel Alonzo. Catherine is 14. You hear me? She is not your payment. Silence. Then, a long exhale through the speaker, like a lung emptying for the first honest time all night. The printer at the desk woke and printed a single label. The new grad ran it to me, hand shaking. It read, Alonzo, Miguel, bed 12, deceased, 12:10 p.m. Attending, O'Malley. M. The time was wrong. It was 12:10, not 12:04. The ledger had corrected. I placed the label on the chart like it was a sacrament. Cliffhanger beat. Down the hall. 18's monitor, empty room. No patient, spiked into a wild mechanical VTAC and then flatlined. The speaker said, bright as a tone chime, code blue, bed 18. And over it, softer, unmistakable. Nurse? For Mara. Chapter 8. Everything moves. The hallway doors sighed open against the air pressure, just wide enough to break the seal. Papers lifted from clipboards like startled birds. The unit shifted in subtle ways, transport logs reloading with altered times, patient boards blinking and rewriting themselves, rooms relabeled. I pulled the status board closer. Bed 12, Alonzo, Miguel. Bed 14, Donnelly, Catherine. Bed 18, vacant. Only 5 minutes earlier, 18 had been her listed bed. Now the hospital itself was correcting, like a hand pushing puzzle pieces into place. Everything's rewriting, the charge said, like census is live editing itself. June leaned against the wall, cardigan sleeves pushed back, eyes sharp. That's what noon does. It pulls everything into alignment, whether it's right or not. Lunch hour is the ledger's reset. Then how are you still here? I asked. Her eyes dimmed, then steadied. Because I didn't balance. I died at 12:04 3 years ago. Wrong patient. Wrong med. System marked me alive in another bed. Another hospital. For another 12 hours. And when the paper kept me breathing, the room refused to let me leave. You're saying you're... She cut me off. Don't use the word. Call me an unpaid balance, that's all. The doors at the far end pushed again, empty gurneys rolling a few inches forward, wheels squeaking like something unseen had leaned against them. The entire unit pulsed with pressure and release. What happens if the ledger keeps correcting? I asked. June's voice was soft, resigned. Someone trades places, and tonight, the bed has your name ready. Cliffhanger beat. The intercom burst alive. Rapid response, bed 14, Catherine's room. The door slammed shut from the inside. Chapter 9, room swap. We sprinted to 14. The door wouldn't open. AC pressure held it like a vault. Inside, Catherine's monitor spiked, heart rate 140, sats diving. Her muffled voice floated through the door. Don't let me trade. I shoved my shoulder against the frame. June pressed the call button to the panel outside. The speaker whispered, Nurse? For Mara. The board blinked again. Bed 14 now read Mara L. RN. Admit for cardiac observation. My name, my age, allergies, none, code status, full. They're trying to write you into her place, the charge said, pale. I grabbed the marker and scrawled on the dry erase board. 14. Donnelly, Catherine. Hold. Mara Obbs. Paper against machine. Ink against digital light. The system hesitated, flickering both names, as if it couldn't decide which reality to print. June's voice was urgent. We need a decoy, another admission to trick the ledger. Otherwise, it'll keep pushing until someone pays. The new grad's hands shook, but she opened a blank chart shell and typed, Admit John Doe, Bed 18B, Obbs pending. The system blinked. For a moment, it stabilized. 14 equals Donnelly, 12 equals Alonzo, 18B equals Doe. The door to 14 hissed and released. Catherine lay gasping, but alive. Her monitor climbed slowly back toward safe numbers. You bought time, June said, but it'll know the difference soon. Cliffhanger beat. On the desk printer, a new page spat out. Discharge summary. John Doe, expired, 12:04 p.m. The decoy had already been traded. Chapter 10. Bed 12's promise. The paper trembled in my hand. John Doe, created minutes ago, already marked dead, backdated to the cursed minute. This isn't buying time, I whispered. It's feeding it scraps. June's eyes hardened. Then make it choke. How? She held up the call button. Bed 12 wants closure. Give it the name it missed, the time it lost. If you close the loop, maybe it stops hunting. I stepped into 12. The room was colder than ever. The monitor beeped once, then steadied into a false normal. I pressed the call button. For Miguel Alonzo, I said. Date of death 12:10. You hear me? 12:10, not 12:04. That's the truth. That's the closure. The speaker sighed, a long, emptying exhale. For a moment the air grew warmer, almost human. The printer outside went quiet. No more papers. The board steadied. 12 it was Alonzo, 14 it was Donnelly, 18B it was vacant. The ledger had accepted, or so I thought. Cliffhanger beat. The lights flickered. The intercom whispered, almost playful. Next trade due dawn. Chapter 12. Handoff at dawn. The unit was wrapped in that pre-dawn quiet. The false calm before day shift invades with fresh voices and hot coffee. Every screen blinked steady. Every patient breathed in rhythm with the vents and their own weary lungs. But bed 12 glowed red, a single pulse of defiance. Nurse, for Mara. The voice slid out of the wall speaker, gentle as a lullaby, final as a will. The charge shook her head. Don't answer it. But I stepped inside. Some debts follow you no matter where you hide. The sheets were pulled to shoulder height, corners tight. The monitor traced a perfect waveform, like a lie rehearsed too well. On the side table lay a folded piece of printer paper. Discharge. Mara L. RN. Expired. 06 Ontwag. I pressed the call button. My hand didn't shake. For June Keating, I said. My voice carried, strong against the chill. Bed 12 belongs to June Keating. Date of death, 12:04 p.m. 3 years ago. Signed. Witnessed. Closed. The air thickened, as if the walls themselves inhaled. The waveform on the monitor trembled, then flattened into a long, honest line. The speaker whispered, almost tender, paid. Behind me the door opened with a sigh. June stood in the frame, cardigan hanging loose, eyes shining in the thin dawn light. She looked smaller, softer, as if the weight had finally lifted. Thank you, she whispered. And then she was gone. Not vanished with a trick, but gone like a scent fading, like breath that doesn't return. The printer clattered once more. A single label rolled out. Keating. June. Bed 12. Deceased. 12:04 p.m. I placed it in the chart sleeve. My hand steady now. By 0700, day shift arrived. Sunlight pushed through the blinds, harsh and ordinary. Report was uneventful. The kind of lie we tell so the world keeps turning. I handed over my badge, my notes, the folded strips of telemetry still in my pocket. Nothing out of the ordinary, I said, voice calm, professional. Just nights. But as I walked out, I glanced back. Bed 12 was already stripped, linens bundled, rails down, an empty room waiting. And I knew one truth the chart would never hold. Hospitals don't forgive, they just balance. Story 2. The Oxygen Heist. Chapter 1. Red Sky. You can smell a hospital before you see it. Disinfectant, latex, and something tired underneath. But that night, what hit me first wasn't bleach. It was smoke. The wildfire 20 miles away had turned the whole horizon into a bruise. By the time my shift started, the sunrise was brown instead of gold, and every patient wheeled in from the parking lot looked like they'd been dipped in ash. Respiratory season without the courtesy of winter. I was charge nurse for nights, which means I played referee, secretary, and sometimes priest. Our census was full. Half COPDers clutching their rescue inhalers, half evacuees who'd run from the fire with portable tanks and not enough refills. Oxygen became currency. Every cylinder on wheels looked like a bar of gold. Eli, the RT on call said, tossing me a clipboard. We're down 6 tanks from the supply closet. Inventory doesn't match. I frowned. Stolen? Not unless ghosts need O2. He smirked. They were logged out, but nobody signed. We wheeled carts down to the med-surg wing. Patients snored under masks, chest rising and falling like waves, barely keeping up with the tide. I checked the green gauges on portable tanks. Half of them read 50% full. Not empty, not usable, just stuck in that middle ground, like the tanks couldn't decide whether they were alive or dead. Bad regulators? I asked. RT shook his head. Nope. They read fine at checkout, only drop once they hit the unit. I bent down, tapped a gauge with my knuckle. The needle didn't twitch. Half a tank, stubborn and certain. At 0313, room 7 coded. Elderly evacuee, smoke inhalation, lungs brittle as paper. We ran the drill, compressions, EPI, intubation, flatline anyway. The moment he died, the tank at his bedside hissed, needles slamming from 50% to full green like a liar finally telling the truth. Everyone froze. RT and I locked eyes. That's impossible, he whispered. Not here, I said, not at 3:13 a.m. Cliffhanger beat. When we wheeled the body to the morgue, the tank followed, rolling itself a foot forward before we caught it. The hissing stopped only when it crossed the elevator threshold. Chapter 3. RT Who Stays. By 0430, the smoke outside thickened. The windows were brown mirrors, the world erased. Inside, the tanks stood like they knew something we didn't. I pulled up staffing logs, half to distract myself. One column jumped out. Respiratory therapist, Keating, J. Clocked in, 2300. I frowned. RT. Who else came in tonight? He glanced at the screen. Nobody but me. Why? Because the system says Keating is still on. He laughed. Too sharp. No way. June Keating's been dead 3 years. I didn't blink. You knew her? Everyone did. She was the night RT before me. Died in the middle of a code. O-negative blood type tattoo on her wrist. She bragged about being a universal donor. Whole unit swore they still heard her pagers go off after she passed. The name burned. June Keating. The same ghost who had walked me through bed 12 last story. The one who'd said she never clocked out. Check this out, RT whispered. He tapped the system again. The screen refreshed, and there it was in cold black text. Respiratory therapist, Keating J. Task completed. Portable O2 delivery, room 5, 0313. That's not possible, he said. I didn't log that. And yet the chart had a digital signature, Keating JRRT. We went to room 5 together. The bed was stripped, patient gone to the morgue. The tank at his side, tank number 17, sat upright, green gauge full, mask dangling like a mouth waiting to be fed again. A faint smell lingered. Not bleach, not smoke. Something sharp, medicinal, with a memory, eucalyptus. The scent of menthol rub, old school therapy June swore by. RT swallowed hard. You smell that? I nodded, my stomach turned. Behind us, the overhead speaker crackled without warning. A voice, papery and thin, spoke 5 words. Don't waste what's borrowed. The sound came from the negative pressure room at the end of the hall, the one sealed since last year. Cliffhanger beat. The door to that unused isolation room hissed, its light switched on, and from inside, we heard the unmistakable sound of someone setting a regulator onto a fresh O2 tank. Chapter 4. Negative pressure. The negative pressure room sat at the far end of the hall, door sealed since last winter's flu surge. Nobody had used it in months. The warning sign still clung crooked above the handle. Isolation. Do not enter without N95. But the light inside glowed a sickly yellow. and the sound was unmistakable, the click-hiss-click of a regulator being tightened onto a tank. I pushed the door. It gave. The air hit me like a slap, cold, thick, smelling not of bleach but of eucalyptus and wintergreen. Old vapor rub, my grandmother's cure for every cough. It didn't belong here, not in this century, not in this room. On the floor stood 3 oxygen tanks, gauges, all 50%. Masks coiled neatly on the bed, as if waiting for patients. And in the corner chair sat a figure in seal blue scrubs, head bowed, hands folded around a call button like it was a rosary, wrist exposed. Tattoo in block letters, ONEG, June Keating. She didn't look at me, just kept turning the call button cord through her fingers over and over like she was braiding time. "You shouldn't be here," she murmured. "Neither should you," I said. My throat was dry, my mask useless against the wrong kind of air. Her voice was calm, almost tender. "This room balances the ledger. The tanks hold the debt until someone pays." "Pays how?" I asked. "By breathing borrowed air. By dying so another can inhale." She raised her eyes then, blue and sharp. "You've seen it. Half a tank until death, then full again. It isn't malfunction. It's accounting." I stepped closer. The tanks vibrated faintly under my hand, as if full of something more than gas. "Why you? Why stay?" "Because at 12:04 3 years ago I was the wrong name on the right chart. I gave my last breath to a man who lived, and the hospital decided I was the perfect clerk. I never clocked out." The air pressure shifted, walls creaking like lungs. All 3 tanks hissed at once, gauges twitching from half to green, though no one had died this time. "What does that mean?" I asked. June tilted her head. "It means dawn is coming, and the fire outside is hungry. More evacuees will arrive short of breath. Someone has to decide who gets to breathe and who gets written off as supply." Her hand closed around the call button. The wall speaker clicked alive. "Rapid response, room 9. The tanks exhaled like a chorus. Cliffhanger beat. We sprinted out. In room 9, a young mother wheezed against her mask, her child asleep in her lap. Gauge at her bedside read 50%. And the supply board updated by itself. Tank assigned, Keating J, 0313. Chapter 5, Borrowed Breath. Room 9 was chaos when we rushed in. The young mother thrashed against her mask, her chest pulling like a bellows with no wood left to burn. The child in her lap slept so soundly it felt wrong, head rolling with each of her desperate jerks. Her tank gauge sat frozen at 50%, the same dead half mark mocking us again. "Switch tanks," I barked. RT yanked a fresh cylinder from the hall. "Gauge 50, another lie." Her sat slid to 74. The mother clawed at my arm, eyes wide, lips purple. "Don't let him," she gasped, chin tipping toward her son. "Stay with me," I said, cranking the flow wide open. Oxygen hissed, but the monitor didn't budge. The room smelled sharper. Menthol, eucalyptus, the scent of someone else's breath. RT cursed, dropped to his knees and bagged her with the ambu. The child stirred, coughed once, then fell back into that eerie calm. His tiny chest rose in rhythm with the bag, as if he were pulling air from her lungs instead of the tank. At 0313, her heart monitor screamed flatline, and the gauge snapped green, full. The hissing grew strong, steady, feeding the mask like it had been waiting for that moment. The child opened his eyes, deep and clear, and took a long, perfect inhale. RT froze mid-compression. He's breathing better." The boy's sats ticked 95, then 98, climbing as if he'd been plugged into her life. I felt my stomach turn. It stole her breath. It gave it to him. The wall speaker crackled. June's voice, soft, almost kind. "Borrowed air is still air. Debt moves, but it never disappears." The mother's hand slipped from mine, knuckles pale. Her child clutched her limp fingers even as his own chest rose steady, full of the air she could not keep. I charted the time, 0313, cause, respiratory failure. But the truth wouldn't fit in the EMR. RT leaned against the wall, face ashen. "How many more?" he whispered. I didn't answer, because I'd already heard the faint click hiss down the hall. Another regulator tightening, another debt called in. Cliffhanger beat. The supply board refreshed itself. Tank number 22, assigned, Keating J. Next due, 0313, but the clock on the wall read 3:02. The system was moving early. Chapter 6, The Ledger of Breath. By 0305, the unit was too quiet. The kind of quiet where machines hesitate before lying again. I pulled the supply clipboard from the desk, flipping past the official printouts until I hit a page that didn't belong. A sheet of yellowed paper tucked between the forms, handwritten columns dated back months. At the top, ledger of breath. Names, initials, times, always 0313, always paired, one expired, one stabilized, and every entry signed the same way, J. Keating, RRT. I felt the chill creep up my neck. June had been dead 3 years, yet here she was, balancing trades in ink no printer would admit. RT leaned over my shoulder. Holy hell, look. The most recent entry, 0313, donor, M. Carter, Rum 7, recipient L. Patel, Rum 2, witness J. Keating. The next line already half written. 313, donor, blank, recipient, blank. Who's Carter? I asked. RT swallowed. Room 7, the evacuee who coded earlier. And Patel? He checked the chart. Asthma patient. He was circling the drain yesterday, then, out of nowhere, his SATs normalized after 3 a.m. My skin prickled. The ledger wasn't prophecy, it was record-keeping. Someone had been logging the swaps for years. The wall speaker clicked. Faint static. June's voice threaded through. We don't choose who dies. We just record who balances. I slammed the clipboard shut. No. You're choosing by writing it. You're making it real. Silence stretched long enough to hurt. Then, if I don't write it, the air decides. You don't want the air deciding. Behind us, one of the half-full tanks rattled against the wall, metal clanging like a bell. The gauge twitched, half full, as if impatient, as if RT grabbed my arm. Eli, the next line's blank. What if it's us? The hall lights flickered. At the end of the corridor, the negative pressure room glowed yellow again. The door stood ajar, paper taped to the glass. 2 names scrawled in marker. Donor, E. Morris. Recipient, J. Keating. It was my name. And hers. Cliffhanger beat. The tanks hissed all at once, every gauge slamming to full green, though no patient had died. The debt was calling early, and it wanted me. Chapter 7. The Noon Debt. The paper on the glass fluttered in the recycled air. Donor, E. Morris. Recipient, J. Keating. My name inked in someone else's handwriting, already half dry. I ripped it down, heart hammering. No, I'm not part of your ledger. June stood inside the room, cardigan draped over her thin frame, the Oneg tattoo stark against pale skin. She didn't look surprised. It was bound to catch you eventually. You wrote this? I snapped. She shook her head slowly. The system writes. I just keep up. The tanks behind her hissed like restless snakes. Gauges pulsed green, then half, then green again, as if practicing the swap. RT hovered in the doorway, face pale as the walls. Eli, don't go in there. But I stepped inside. The eucalyptus hit hard, medicinal and wrong. Why me? June's eyes were tired. Infinite. Because Noon was cheated once. A VIP lived. I died. The debt was never balanced. The system's been carrying the deficit for 3 years. It's hungry. It's hunting the first name that looks like a correction. And that's me. Your charge, she said simply. The one who signs. The one who holds the power to swap. My throat burned. Then what happens if I refuse to sign? She tilted her head. The air decides. Random. A child. An old man. Whoever's weakest. That's what happened before me. I only write it down so it doesn't scatter. RT whispered behind me. Eli, this is insane. We're arguing with... He couldn't finish. I held the yellowed ledger in front of her. What if I write something else? What if I flip it? Her face cracked. Fear and awe mixing. No one's ever dared. The tanks hissed louder. Regulators tightening by themselves. The wall speaker clicked on. Voice distorted. Not hers this time. Donor Eli. Recipient Keating. Time 0313. The clock read 0312. I grabbed the pen hanging from the clipboard and scrawled fast, my hand shaking but my will steady. Donor, June Keating. Recipient, all patients, Unit C. The ink bled. The page glowed faintly in the jaundiced light. The tanks shrieked with escaping gas, filling the room with a roaring gale of oxygen, too pure, too hungry. June's eyes widened, horror and relief fighting in her face. You don't know what you've done. I know I'm not dying tonight, I said, voice ragged. Cliffhanger beat. The gauges all snapped to zero. Every tank on the unit, and from every room came the same sound at once, patients gasping awake. drawing in air that wasn't connected to any line. Chapter 8. The trade reversed. The sound rose like a wave, dozens of lungs dragging in air at once. No tanks, no masks, just raw breath pulled from nowhere. Every monitor spiked, sats jumping to 99, hearts racing as if each body had been flooded with borrowed life. RT staggered back, wide-eyed. They're all stable. Every single patient, even the ones we thought wouldn't make it to dawn. I stared at the ledger in my hand. The ink of my scrawl was still wet. Donor, June Keating. Recipient, all patients. The air grew colder, sharp enough to sting. Behind me, June clutched her chest, folding forward like she'd been punched. Her breath rattled, eyes wild. "You gave them my balance," she gasped. "You wanted closure," I said. "Now every patient gets it." She shook her head violently. "Not closure. Containment. I was the ledger's vessel. Without me, it'll spread. Every room, every bed, every shift it'll look for new clerks." The tanks rattled against the walls, metal screaming as gauges swung aimlessly. Alarms cascaded down the hall, oxygen lines hissing like open throats. The intercom snapped alive with overlapping voices, dozens, maybe hundreds. Men, women, children. They all said the same words in a desperate chorus. "Don't let me trade. Don't let me trade. Don't let me trade." RT clamped his hands over his ears. "Eli, you didn't reverse it. You unleashed it." I turned to June. She was fading before my eyes, color draining, cardigan sleeves emptying like sandbags leaking, but her eyes were still sharp. "There's one chance," she rasped. "One name to bind it again. Yours. Sign as donor. Take the debt. End it." I gripped the pen so hard it almost snapped. "You want me to sacrifice myself?" She coughed, a sound like tearing paper. "Or let the whole hospital become the ledger." The wall clock ticked over. 3:13. Every monitor in the unit flatlined at once. Cliffhanger beat. The ledger in my hand flipped its own page, blank lines glowing faint green. At the top, in letters that weren't mine, it had already written, "Donor, Eli Morris. Recipient, TBD." Chapter 9. The binding name. Every monitor shrieked at once, a storm of flat lines that didn't belong to the living or the dead. The walls themselves seemed to vibrate, the oxygen tanks banging like fists against doors. The ledger glowed faint green in my hands, mocking me. "Donor, Eli Morris. Recipient, TBD." RT clung to the doorframe, face white as paper. "Eli, sign it. If you don't, everyone goes." June leaned against the isolation bed, half transparent now, cardigan hanging from a body that looked more memory than flesh. Her eyes cut through me. "Don't. That's how it traps clerks. One signature and you'll never clock out." The intercom filled with voices, every patient on the unit, speaking in perfect unison, though half were unconscious. "Don't let me trade. Don't let me trade." My hand hovered over the pen. If I signed, maybe the hospital lived and I didn't. If I refused, maybe the hospital became a machine of endless swaps, lives shuffled like cards. Then I saw it. In the margins of the yellowed pages, smudged and nearly erased, were old entries, names scratched out, rewritten, and one note in jagged ink. "Ledger accepts false donors if signed at 0313. A loophole. I snapped my gaze to RT. "Get me a name. Anyone who doesn't exist here. A ghost admission." He blinked. "Like John Doe?" "Yes. A decoy." The tank screamed, gauges slamming green to 0 and back again. The clock read 03:13:40. Seconds were bleeding away. I scribbled fast. "Donor, John Doe. Recipient, all patients." The page burned hot under my pen. For a heartbeat I thought it would reject me, turn my name black across the top. But then, silence. Every monitor blipped back to life. Vitals steady, sats climbing. The patients stopped whispering. They simply breathed, like people again. RT sagged against the wall, tears in his eyes. "You did it." But June was shaking her head. Her form flickered, fading like static. "You cheated the ledger. It won't forgive. It'll wait." The intercom clicked once more, quiet now, almost intimate. A single voice whispered through the halls, not hers, not mine. "Next donor due, dawn." Cliffhanger beat. The ledger flipped its page by itself. At the top in fresh black ink, "Donor, E. Morris. Recipient, pending, time, 0600. Chapter 10. The Dawn Bargain. The clock read 05:12. Less than an hour until the ledger's promise. 06 Huntwick. Donor, E. Morris. My name inked in black, waiting like a warrant. The unit was calm on the surface. Patients slept with SATs in the high 90s. Breath smooth, almost too smooth, as if the air itself wanted to prove it could be generous. But every tank stood full and humming, regulators vibrating like teeth chattering in a cold no one else could feel. RT leaned close, voice low. What if you don't fight it? What if you just let it take you? Better one life than dozens. I glared. That's exactly what it wants us to believe. That's how it keeps its clerk. From the negative pressure room, June's voice drifted out. Softer now, nearly gone. He's right. I said no once. Someone else paid. Then someone else. Until I signed. And I never left. Her form wavered. Transparent. The O-neg tattoo on her wrist looked burned in. If you let it bind to you at dawn, at least the patients will live. That's the only bargain it respects. I raised the ledger, its blank lines glowing faint green like veins under skin. Maybe it respects something else. Truth. What if I make it own the fraud it's been feeding on? RT frowned. How? I flipped back through the old entries. One name repeated. O'Malley, MMD. Dozens of signatures tying trades to orders. A doctor who hadn't been on call for half of them. The system had been covering itself with his name, forging authority to justify the swaps. If I write the real thief into the book, I whispered, maybe it binds to him instead of me. June's eyes widened with both hope and horror. That's dangerous. The ledger punishes lies, but it also punishes truth spoken too late. The tanks hissed louder. The intercom clicked alive. Monotone. Prepare donor, Eli Morris. The clock ticked 05:59. I pressed the pen hard into the page and scrawled, Donor, O'Malley, MMD. Recipient, all patients. Witness, Eli Morris. The page pulsed once, then bled black across the ink like fresh blood spreading on gauze. The tank screamed, regulators snapping open in unison. Air blasted so hard it knocked charts from desks, whipped curtains sideways, drove us to our knees. And then, silence. The ledger closed itself with a final snap. Cliffhanger beat. When I opened my eyes, June was gone. The tanks were empty, and at the top of the closed ledger, burned into the cover like a brand, was a single line of fresh text. Next shift clerk, Eli Morris. Chapter 11. Clerk of Breath. At 06:01, dawn cracked the horizon, a weak orange behind the smoke-stained glass. Day shift poured in, oblivious, laughing, sipping coffee, shaking out report sheets. The world looked ordinary again, too ordinary. Every patient was alive, stable. Even the frailest evacuee breathed steady, like the wildfire outside was just a dream. They smiled in sleep, lips pink, oxygen saturations pinned at 99, a perfect census. And yet the ledger lay heavy in my pocket, warm against my scrubs. Its cover now bore that single branded line. Next shift clerk, Eli Morris. I told myself I wouldn't look, but I did. The first page had already written itself in black ink. Donor, TBD. Recipient, TBD. Time, 03:13. Witness, Eli Morris. Not a suggestion, a command. RT caught me staring at it, his face drained. It tagged you. I flipped it once, I whispered. Maybe I can flip it again. June's voice echoed faint in memory, words she'd left me with. I never clocked out. I looked at my badge. The barcode flickered on the reader when I tried to sign out. The system beeped. Access denied. Shift not complete. Not complete. Not until I wrote. Down the hall, the tanks, emptied by the storm, stood perfectly still. But as the clock ticked 06:13, one gauge twitched upward by itself, half full. No patient attached, no breath consumed, just a promise waiting. The ledger warmed hotter. I felt it then, not just in the tanks, but in the vents, the very airflow of the hospital. The place itself was holding its breath, waiting for me to balance the page. RT grabbed my arm. Don't write, Eli. Burn it, destroy it. I shook my head, voice hollow. You can't destroy what feeds on breath. You can only keep the book moving. I slid the ledger back into my pocket, its heat settling into me like a second pulse. My throat tightened. Each inhale felt heavier, as though the air was counting me now. Cliffhanger beat. The intercom chimed, cheerful as ever. A single line of text scrolled across every monitor on the unit. Shift assigned, clerk, E. Morris. Next entry due 03:13. Chapter 12. Handoff at sunrise. The sun had broken through the smoke, a pale coin above the hills, but inside the hospital the air was still stale, waiting. Every monitor blinked steady, but I knew it was a performance, a trick. The ledger in my pocket pulsed with heat like a second heart. Day shift swarmed the unit. Clipboards, med carts, chatter. None of them noticed that every oxygen tank stood exactly half full. Not empty, not usable, waiting. The charge nurse asked me for report. My mouth moved, giving vitals, meds, labs. The words were automatic, but my mind stayed locked on the book pressing into my hip. When I finished, she nodded. Good shift. You're free. Free. I went to the badge reader, slid my card. Access denied. Shift not complete. The red light blinked in time with my pulse. The intercom chimed at 070 qua. Not an alarm, not a page, just a voice, smooth as static. Clerk Eli Morris. Entry due at 0313. Do not leave. RT hovered at the door, face pale. Eli, don't do this. Don't let it own you. I already did, I whispered. I pulled the ledger out. Its cover now bore a fresh title etched in scorched black. Ledger of Breath, Clerk E. Morris. The first page for the next night was blank, waiting. I stared at it, pen trembling in my hand. Maybe I could trick it again. Write John Doe, write false names, keep the patients safe, even if it meant carving lies into eternity. Or maybe June had been right. You don't win, you just balance. Behind me, the tanks hissed in unison, half gauges trembling toward empty. The vents blew sharp eucalyptus into every room, a reminder of the price. I thought of Catherine Donnelly, of the mother in room 9, of every patient who had breathed because someone else hadn't. Lives shuffled like cards, debts disguised as mercy. My hand hovered, the page glowed faint green, eager. I closed the book instead, hard, slid it into the bottom drawer of the nurse's station, and turned the key. Not tonight, I said to the walls. Not my name. The air pressure shifted, subtle but sure, like a lung deciding whether to exhale or hold. The monitors blinked once, then steadied. RT looked at me, horror and hope in his eyes. You just delayed it. I know. The intercom whispered one last time, almost gentle. Debt carried forward. I walked out into the sunrise, badge useless in my pocket, breath heavy in my chest. Because dawn didn't mean escape. It only meant I had 8 hours until night.